I want to begin by taking a moment to pay tribute to two Canadian women whom I think are two of the most courageous women that I did not know, but have come to know in their death. And they are Gloria Taylor and Kay Carter. These two women were on a journey of life that was not of their choosing, and they came to the point in their life where they wanted some assistance in the final days of their life, in the final part of their journey. And I think as a United Church minister, I walked that journey with many, many people, hundreds of people in fact, and have done even more funerals where I did not know the person and only came to know them through the stories of their family and the legacy they left behind. And Kay Carter and Gloria Taylor are two such women whose courage, whose tenacity, whose hopefulness, and whose love of life have instructed us, I think, to this very day, where we are now considering a bill on medical assistance in dying. In paying tribute to them, I also want to give them thanks for actually engaging us in what is one of the best civics lessons that I think we could ever have as a chamber. Each of the branches of our government have a chance to speak on this. There's a legislative branch, a judicial branch, as well as the executive branch. We actually began this conversation in 1982, where we invoked the charter that is now so much part of our Canadian culture of rights and freedoms. That charter has instructed all Canadians, its courts and its legislators, since the day it was passed. The reality is then, when Kay Carter and Gloria Taylor made their appeal to the Supreme Court of British Columbia, and it went to the Court of Appeal in BC and then to the Supreme Court of Canada, we had the opportunity to have our judicial branch take a look at their rights and their possibilities of having assistance in their death. The courts ruled on that and gave us 1 year as the parliamentary branch and the executive branch to come up with a law. The parliamentary branch then spoke by having a joint committee with the House and the Senate, and I need to say to this chamber that that was probably the richest experience I have had as a member of Parliament. Men and women, senators, members of this House, engaging in a discussion, listening to the stories of life and of death and of healing and of hope, changed me profoundly. And it gave me the opportunity to recognize that the parliamentary system that we have gives Canadians a great opportunity to hear their voice being heard at committee and now in this House. The executive branch then picked up from the report and have presented Bill C-14. And I want to thank the Minister for her work on this, for her office and for Justice for taking the report that we did seriously, by engaging in it further and coming up with a piece of legislation which at this time I am very clear will be supporting. I will be supporting at second reading. That doesn't mean that I think we're finished with this piece of legislation, because it's now back to the parliamentary system where we are to engage in the dialogue with the executive branch about making a law that could be good enough better. Because when we're dealing with issues of life and death, I don't think good enough is good enough. And I think we can honor the quest that Gloria Taylor and Kay Carter engaged in, and that the Supreme Court of Canada ruled on, that the executive branch has presented a law on, and as parliamentarians take seriously the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, take it to our heart. Look at what it is that we as members of Parliament are sworn to. It is more than allegiance to Her Majesty. It is about upholding the Constitution of this country and engaging in it with love, with commitment, with passion, with hope, and looking at how that decision that the Supreme Court made can actually live out in the life of Canada. So we have a piece of legislation that is before us today, and it was decided that Section 7 of the Charter could not be used to deny the rights of two women looking for assistance in their death. The government of the day tried to fight that Section 7 Declaration of Rights by invoking Section 1 of the Charter, saying that there were reasonable grounds to withhold those rights, but the Supreme Court of Canada did not allow that. They said it would be unreasonable to actually deny those rights to be given to those women. And they made a very specific case, a very specific decision on a very specific case at a specific time. They also said in paragraph 127 of the decision that they did not pronounce on things which were not before them in that case. And so that was Parliament's then requirement. It's also the bill, which, yes, does engage all of Canadians in a discussion about what it is that we can have as a continuum of care that continues to the place where we're able to help people on that final journey. We come at it differently, and as the honourable member in his last speech gave, I have full respect for the member of Kitchener-Conestoga. He has engaged in this decision, this subject well, and I have taken into account the fact that he has passion. We've come at it differently. However, I have no doubt that everyone on both sides of this House is concerned about the well-being of Canadians. However, the bill, I think, needs to go even a little bit further to be faithful to our Constitution. I have concerns with it in that I think that there could be further challenges to the bill in the courts that I don't think Canadians should have to endure. The reality is I have a couple of very specific concerns I would like to raise to the House, and that is the use of the word incurable. The court was very clear that it didn't want to use the word incurable. Instead, it used the word irremediable. And I think that by invoking the word incurable, you begin to look at the disease instead of the person. What I mean by that is sometimes a disease may be incurable or curable, but the person has the right, as the Supreme Court said, to not undertake treatments that are not acceptable to that person. So those treatments may be cruel or may be punishing. And the reality is that the court has said that they do not need to undertake them. The disease may be curable, but that person has chosen a different path, and that, under Section 7, is their right. So I have that concern about the invoking of that word. The other concern I have is the introduction of the concept of foreseeable death, or death in the foreseeable future. All of us live a precarious life. Life is fragile, life is precious, life is dear, but for some, life has become intolerable. Some diseases which are not necessarily mortal in that sense that they are necessarily automatically going to the final days with that disease still have pain that is intolerable. And the Supreme Court decision in Carter says they have the right to medical assistance in dying. And I think the introduction of that concept of death in a foreseeable future has muddied the waters. Physicians are saying, what does it mean? Does it mean terminal? Different hospitals have a different definition of terminality than other hospitals have and different physicians have. And I think we have to be very careful on that. The third point I would make is one of those safeguards. And I think this is robust legislation. There are safeguards in place that I do not believe are of a great concern. One safeguard worries me, and that is the very final one in the third section on safeguards, Section 8H, where it says that just immediately before the administration of those substances which will cause death, the person needs to once again declare competently that they want death to happen. I have been in too many hospital rooms. I have sat with too many dying people, and most of the people who will access this kind of continuum of care are dying and will probably be receiving medication, morphine. And to take them off morphine to ensure that they have capacity to give consent, I believe is cruel. I think the reality is, in a 15-day period, the person has been allowed then, should be allowed to make a gracious exit and be given the compassion to not be once again required to become competent because the morphine is helping them with their intolerable suffering, because they are suffering intolerably. That has already been declared. With those exceptions, I am supportive of this bill. I think that the Justice Committee has its work to do. I am looking forward to thorough deliberations. I have utter confidence in every member of that committee, and I'm looking forward to the bill returning to this House and then going to the other place, and I know that Canadians will have a law that helps them and that makes Canada a richer and stronger country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Kitchener.